Good afternoon, everyone, all the audience that's been participating in the Dice Kings podcast. And of course, let's acknowledge the station man, the main man himself, John Stiles, whose station would you like to... Oh, patent pending. How are you, sir?
I'm
How
doing
are you?
excellent, Danny.
Give him the
Perhaps.
call sign to
The
this.
call sign
wonderful-
is WWDBTV.com. He's the hottest show in town, Las Vegas. And I just can't wait to, it's WWDBTV.com. Excuse me. I apologize.
Well, Patton, I saw you out back having a nip. I didn't want to say, I thought it was Robitussin, but I think it was something else.
Well, I can't read. You know, I'm old. I have excuses.
You're old. Hey, I got slapped in the supermarket because I was feeling my way around, and I thought I grabbed a couple of tomatoes. And unfortunately, it was a big cantaloupe.
Yeah, big cantaloupe. Anyhow, we're going to have a little bit of an interesting show today. We're going to talk a little bit about what it was like for us to get into the business, how we got involved and all that stuff. It's pretty interesting. So, Danny Craps, I'd like to turn it over to you.
Well, before I do that, I do want to acknowledge the Garden Grill. It's a plant-based little cafe on Buffalo and Lake Mead over by Sprouts. They have some of the, if you want an alternative, they have some of the finest things. Oh, super. Go give them a shot. Go see Leslie. She's a friend of mine, and they will treat you right.
Oh, that's nice. That's very nice.
Yes, yes.
So, Danny, how did you even get started in the whole business of the gaming in Las Vegas?
Well, I turned 21 in 1973. I did 6 months at UNLV. I thought maybe that I wanted to get an education. But at that time, everyone in Las Vegas was making money. It didn't matter what you did. Waiter, busboy, bellman, dealers, of course. Everyone was making a really good living. So I quit going to UNLV, and I told my dad, hey, you know what? I want to be a crap dealer. He tried to change my mind and said to stay in school. I probably should have listened, but anyhow, I did. He'd go to the garage. He taught me the basics. I went to this dealing school they had across from the Lady Luck. The guy was a friend of my father's, and starting to learn the game. And at first it's like Chinese checkers. You just have no idea what's going on. Things are moving fast. The guy's on the stick. The bets are going here and there. So at first it's like when you're becoming a race car driver and you're going at speeds that are excel normal driving. That's what learning how to deal craps is like. Don't you agree, Pat?
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly. It's fast and furious, and you have to learn real quick.
Oh.
So where'd you start in at?
Well, I broke in. My dad had a friend of his. His name was Tony Grazzi. Actually, he was missing one finger on his looked like that. So you get the idea. And he had a little school. I had to go to the little school, but I was already a little advanced. And I had to go to work graveyard. And I think I mentioned it on the show that I was getting $13.80 as a shill. Shill is someone that's going to be a game starter. When it's dead, and I was on graveyard, 11 to 7. So if they gave you a little white chip, they wanted you to go start a game, you'd go to 21, or you'd go to the roulette, or you'd go to craps and shoot the dice, and until they got a game. And that's what you did. And when they did, you got your chip back, and you went back to the Keno Lounge. That's right, Keno Lounge, which I don't believe they have them anymore. But you go back to the Keno Lounge, and you try to go back to sleep. Being a young guy, all the young guys would fall asleep. And they had shill bosses. And this guy was a torturer. As soon as he saw you nodding off, he went behind your chair, and he had big hands. And he'd smack that chair almost to give you a heart attack. Hey, are you awake? Yes. And so that's where I broke in. They let you get on the game a little bit. It was table for table there at the Fremont, but you weren't in on tokes because you were just learning, and all you did, they let you in. You went on the base. You had to break down the bets. You couldn't total. Total means giving a total payoff. Like, for instance, if the man has $10 flat, which is a come bet, and $10 odds, and you take it off if the come bet was on 10, you had to break it down, size into the odds twice, 2 to 1, and hit the one on the back. And you didn't stack up you just left it there. They didn't want you to go beyond that. You just paid the bet and went back. If you made a mistake, they took you off the base and put you on the stick. And on the stick, they wanted you to watch those dice intensely. Don't look up at the boxman. Don't look around at anyone else, the women walking by. You pay attention. And of course, you had to learn to get the control of the dice and also the pace. You had to get the pace. There was no slowdown. The boxman was sitting there. You'd think he was sleeping. Move him. His hand was constantly going like that. Isn't that right, Pat and
That's
Pending?
exactly right. Exactly right. It was amazing. Now, when I broke in, after being out of the service, I got out of the service in '74. I learned at home, though. I had all my family. They taught me at home how to deal the game. They set up a makeshift crap table in the living room, and we just cut chips, and of course, I had to do all my times tables. I had to learn all of them. My brother made them all up for me, so I studied, and I really thought I was real good at it until the California Club opened in 1975, January 1st, 1975. And I went out to see about my first job, and I landed it by a gentleman called Bob Land. He got me hired in there. And I'm telling you what, when you first get on that game, the excitement, when them doors open, I didn't know what to expect. I mean, I was green, I was young, I was scared, I was shaking. Your knees are shaking together, and then when the crowd hit the game, you forget everything that you were taught. I mean, you're just sort of just a lump standing there, and you got the box man hitting you. Pay this, kid, pay that. It was amazing how nervous you get and scared the first night. But after a few years or hours, I mean, you start getting through it and everything. And like you said, when you're on the stick, you're shaking like a leaf. And, dealing, you're shaking like a leaf. It's an eye-opener. Yeah.
The thing, too, is when people start throwing up money, craps is a unique game where money is flying from all over, every direction, especially when people are betting the props. The proposition bets are 2, 3, 11, and 12. Plus there's three-way 7. Plus there's hop bets. And back then they didn't have hop bets on the crap game. You had to put them a certain place, and you would tell the boxman he's hopping a two-way 10 and a two-way 4, which is two-way 4 is 3-1 and 2-2, and two-way 10 is 5-5 and 6-4. So you had to position where he told you. He said, put it over here. And of course, when bets are flying, you have to book those bets, 11, 12, and then you're hoping like, wow, I hope I remembered my keys but you don't. You draw a blank because you're nervous. And then the boxman's looking at you. He's letting you hang for a minute or two until he says, okay, give him this much. When you come around, come see me. We're going to go over a few things here. And so, like Pat and Pending says, you're like a deer in headlights. You're shaking, you're nervous. I mean, there's no doubt. When I went to the bathroom, my underwear was wet. That's no kidding. I said, whoa, I was sweating from places I didn't know existed.
That's true.
Oh, my goodness. And wasn't the California Club a big patronage of the Hawaiians?
That's what they went for, is all the Hawaiians. Sam Boyd, he went after, and he was the owner of it. And Bill Boyd, he run the California Hotel. And they definitely went after the Hawaiian theme, and boy, did we have the Hawaiians. It was busy in there. Nice people, man. We had so much fun down there. But learning the game, like I said, we had to start out as a shill, and shill they give me $5.25 chips just to start the game. But when them doors open, we didn't need no shills, And if you couldn't handle the game, you'd stand back and you'd watch the dealers. Sit there and deal till you sort of got a little bit, your nerves settled down a little bit, then they'd throw you in there. But you still got, hit on and everything. Hey, kid, pay this, pay that, pay that. And then you had to watch they had a lot of players that would come in, Hans and Franz, two twin brothers, and they're famous for being drunk and stealing chips out of the rack.
Hans and Franz?
Yeah.
Were they distant cousins to Frick and Frack?
Actually, I believe they were.
Whoa.
They would take off running, and of course they got caught every time they were drunk. And they let them come in every day, because they'd blow their $5 that they'd have, it was pretty amazing. And Bob Land, of course, he was right there. Jerry Filippelli, he was my shift boss.
I remember
And,
Jerry, always dressed impeccable, and they
Always.
had black hair. Looked very, looked very Italian, which he was.
Yes,
But he
very
was
distinguished.
impeccably dressed.
Yes.
How about Al Kearns?
Al Kearns, they were all down there. I got to know them all. Dutch Holland, he was another one that he was a dealer, but he acted like a floor man and everything. I guess he was downtown for 30-something years, so he never did want to move out. After about a month and a half, I started going out on the strip and watching the dealers out there deal. I was amazed how they handled the chips. They were so smooth and precise, what I thought, because I was just green. But I started doing that quite often, and but you had to do a year downtown. Everybody did back then. That's just the way it was. The lights and the screaming, the yelling. It was for us young kids. It's amazing.
What you had to learn too was that you found that everybody was talking at once. And you're on the crap game, and everyone's asking for something different. This person wants to make a place bet on the 6 and 8, $12 each, pays 14, 7 to 6. Another one's making come bets. Some people are buying it. Some people are laying the 4 and 10. So you have all of these different people saying different things, and you have to learn how to key in on all of them. And you do them one at a time until you get so good that it's almost like a memorization course. 5 people ask for 5 different things, and you go ahead and set it up just as if, there was a piece of paper up there saying, put this there, put that. And that comes from experience. And don't try to deal with one arm. You're not the dealer fugitive like Richard Kimball. No. Use 2 hands.
Well, you never used one hand. If you did, they called you kickstand, and they would hit your arm out from underneath you. And most people would just fall down, almost hit their chin on the layout. You just didn't do that.
It
both
happened,
hands.
It happened to me a few times. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
It happened to me a few times. But, if you wanted to be a crap dealer, it's like we said in some prior episodes, you had to go and practice, even when you started to get somewhat good. When I was at the Fremont, a lot of the old-timers were there. It opened in 1956 at a cost of $6 million, and Ed Levinson and Lou Laurie were the people that opened it up. Ed Levinson at one time was a number 2 man in the Teamsters Union under Jimmy Hoffa, which is some other great stories about who knows what happened to Jimmy Hoffa and all of his associations and so forth. But they had the old-timers there. Jimmy Hill was there. A lot of Paul Brinkman was the casino manager.
Yeah, I remember Paul
These guys were out of Cleveland, Cincinnati, Youngstown, Ohio. They had been working in bust-out joints in different places, and they also were into horse racing. You could catch them when they'd go leave the hotel. They'd be at Leroy's Sportsbook watching the horse races and everything like that. And it was interesting to listen to their stories, when they'd start opening up a little bit, because most of the time they didn't want to have to babysit. We were the new breed of dealers, and we weren't like the old timers. We tried to grow our hair. We had flared pants, a little more cocky. The dealers of yesteryear from the 50s and 60s, their hair, they looked like military guys. Make sure your shoes were shined. Don't come with scuffed shoes. Don't do it. They had to look like mirrors.
Yeah, and they didn't like you wearing a lot of jewelry back then. A lot of
No.
dealers wore a lot of real fancy jewelry. Take it off. They don't want you upscaling any of the players. If you didn't have any jewelry on at all, that was the best. So you definitely didn't want to upscale anybody, and they would tell you to get rid of it. That's just the way it is. Take it off. I don't want you using it on the game.
You're absolutely right. I remember just having a watch.
Yeah.
I had an old Timex watch, and that's what I wore.
No, I didn't even have one. In fact, to this day, I have no rings or watches. That just, rings always seem to get into your way when for me, cutting chips. I got small hands, so cutting the chips, I just, I just couldn't do it right. So I just never wore any jewelry at all. And I remember a lot of times some of them the bosses to mess with you, they would come over and tell you, hey, kid, I want you to go next door. you know, I need you to pick up some pips for the dice. You sit there and you look at them and you go, what's a pip for the dice? You know, in case the little dot falls out of one of the dice, you got to go have extras so they can put them back in. So go over there next door and pick them up, you know. As well, most of us were pretty smart to all that stuff, you know. The wheel crank, remember the old wheel crank? Go
They
get
sent
wheel
me to
crank.
the horseshoe to go find a crank.
Yeah,
The only thing I found was an old cranky box man,
yeah.
and he was too heavy to bring back.
Yeah, so most of the time you go over and sit down at a bar, have a few drinks, and just relax, you know. Come back, and you could take, remember the old paper punches? You could you could get a whole bunch of them from an office, put them in your hand. You could come back and throw them all on the land. So there's your pips.
There's your
You know?
pips.
You know, it was just it was a big laugh, but it was fun. That's what made things fun back then.
It was before Gladys Knight and the pips.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. You know, across the street they had a 50-cent a night that bums could go and spend the night there on a old dirty mattress, but they had a place to sleep, but they would all stumble in there. They would steal drinks off the rails that had cigarette butts in them, and they'd sit there and drink them. That's just how downtown was, you know, for the longest time.
Well, I can tell you, patent pending, I had no idea what downtown was because, you know, my dad had gotten me a busboy job at the Dunes Hotel in 1967. I was in the summer. I was 15 and a half, and my dad had been working there since the end of 1959 all the way to 74. So I worked off and on at the Dunes in various capacities as a busboy in the Savoy room and a dishwasher, room service busboy. And my first experience downtown was breaking in.
Oh, yes.
And it was a totally different animal. I'd learned what class was being out on the strip, even in that capacity. The high rollers, not to get off kilter, but my dad would say, hey, Will Chamberlain's out there. He's putting up his own hardways. Go act like you're picking up some dishes or something. So I'd go out to the pit, and I'm looking. Sure enough, Will Chamberlain's putting up his own hardways. I mean, he was only 7'1", but when you go downtown, it's just a different animal. It's mom and pop. You know, the people there, you're a high roller if you got a credit line of $3,000. You know, you're a high roller, and, and the people, they've been gambling forever. I mean, I remember this older gentleman and his wife. His name was Red. They were from Barstow. And he used to sing to them dice. And he'd say, he would actually say, oh, Dice, ex appende. Come on, Dice, be nice, Dice. Don't be cruel like my ex-wife. Come on. And then his wife, who was real shy, she was a skinny woman with red hair as well. And when she'd got the dice, it was a sight to behold. When she'd sit right in the center, she'd start like this, and then she'd shake violently shake, and then let them go. We'd all get a kick out of that. I mean, everybody couldn't believe it. It was like she suddenly got a big dose of Parkinson's or something. No offense. And then, some of the people.
We had some dandies out there.
Sarge from Georgia. He had one leg and one eye. And he did. I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh, and he'd say, the point would be 10. He said, if there isn't a 10, there ain't a dog in Georgia. You understand me, Danny? Oh, I'd start barking, because, the dogs.
Oh, sure.
I mean, there's just characters like that. You could probably tell me about some of those characters.
We had the mouse man. We had the mouse man out there. And he would get next to the stick, and he'd sit there and play with the dice. But first, he'd put them in his mouth and sit there and wash them off. And then he'd take, they'd be, just disgusting. Set the dice down, and he would sit there and take both hands, and he would start going by his ears, and he'd start chanting, me, 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 me.
I remember the mouse man. He used to come to the Golden Nugget.
And he would get louder and louder. But I tell you what, he had a crowd around him. And then finally, just before he would throw them, he'd really loud, me, 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 me. And then he'd pick them up, and that spit and everything else was rolling down. Oh, my gosh.
I remember the mouse man.
Benny the Bite used to take big bites out of the rail. If a 7-out showed, he'd reach down, he'd just bite a big chunk out of it. Bites all the way around that rail. It was funny. It was really hilarious, some of them people.
Benny the Bite, but the Mouse Man, he never got out of the trap. I can tell you that,
He
right?
never got
right
out of
then,
the
never
trap.
got out of the trap,
No.
and there was so many others. I remember this. They said he was some sort of a priest or whatnot. He would come with rosaries. He'd have 3 or 4 crosses, and then he would bless the dice. He'd pull out this little thing. He said it was holy water. Who knows? And then he'd give it the old, Hail Mary, and it was amazing. It was almost like a religious experience for him.
Oh, sure.
And we'd all look at him and we'd bow our heads. I mean, we'd play along with it, because these people were characters,
They were characters.
And they were numerous. They'd bring. I remember one gentleman brought an abacus. He looked like Alfred Hitchcock. And he'd stand next to the stick, and he'd bring an abacus. And I'd say, what are you doing? He says, this is going to tell me how I can figure out to win some money. Mm-hmm. And, of course, one time he lost $50, and he broke that abacus right against the table, and the beads went everywhere. I never saw the abacus again. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, we had another guy who used to bring a picture and set it up in the rail right there, and we'd all be looking at him, and that's your picture? He said, yeah, it's a picture of my son. Oh, can we see it? No. He said, this is between me and him. And after about 30 minutes or so, you'd get off the stick and you'd come around and you'd see what the picture was, and everybody'd start laughing. And it was a monkey, picture of a monkey that he had there. That was his kid, he called his kid. And just characters like that you were just amazed at some of the stuff you see.
You sure it was his son? It wasn't his uncle?
Yeah, it could have been his uncle.
Monkey's uncle?
Yeah, he called it his son.
Did it drive people bananas?
He drove them bananas.
Did the bosses go ape?
Yeah, they all went ape. It was just
the
amazing
characters
down there. The characters were just funny as could be.
Oh my God, you're absolutely right. They're not around anymore. Obviously, they were already in their 50s and 60s, but these characters would come every weekend. You almost wondered if they had a time clock out there for them, because they would, especially on the quarter game, which was a 25-cent game, and they couldn't wait. There was one guy, I'll never forget him. His name was Alfred. And he had this thing. He'd bet $3.75 across, which was, a quarter or something on every number, whatever.
75 cents.
75 cents. And he'd say, Danny, when you see somebody in a blue shirt, it has to be a light blue shirt. Tell me. Well, I'd mess around. Yeah, I saw someone in a blue shirt, but it was dark blue. And I'd say, I see him. He's over there. I'm working. 7 out. Danny, it's a dark blue shirt, not a light blue. I said, well, I'm kind of colorblind, Alfred. I didn't know. What do I know about it? I mean, it's just these characters were something else.
Yeah. Well, you'd do 20 minutes on the stick, then you'd go and do 40 minutes on base, and then you would take a break for 20 minutes. So it was an hour and 20. So you actually did like 6 hours of work during the day, but them 6 hours that you did work, you were wringing wet when you come off that game.
Oh, my goodness. But, not to change the subject, but I do want to read this Gambler's Poem by Raleigh James. I probably would have memorized it, but I want to get it right. I don't want to make any mistakes. So, without further ado, okay, patent pending?
Absolutely.
And I'm going to read this, and it's called...
It says it all.
I have to take my glasses off. That's how old I am. It's Down for Double, a poem by Raleigh James. Ready out there? Stay awake. The players of dice, like the players of life, found on the street of shame. From craps to the wheel to get a good deal, they're all playing the game. High rollers, low kissers, smokers, and sniffers, they're all doing the same. Working girls, dancers, dealers, romancers, they're all playing the game. Manicured bosses clocking the losses as shorties strike for the gain. Past posters burn and losers learn. They're all playing the game. Counters, hand muckers, squares, and suckers, running to catch the plane. Twist and twirls, agents and girls, they're all playing the game. Changing their luck, playing the duck. Benders and daubers complain. The BBs and the CCs, they're all playing the game. Rounders, squares, singles, and pairs, they're all out in the rain. UFOs, friend and foes, they're all playing the game. Businessmen, whores, taking off scores, going against the grain. Imposters, pesado, legits, and weirdos, they're all playing the game. Betting the limit, taking the odds as whiskey hits the brain. Go down for double, looking for trouble, they're all playing the game. Marriage, divorce, love, and remorse, they all suffer the pain. Valiums, lewds, rudes, and dudes, they're all playing the game. They're coming out, taking the route of your best shot for fame. So don't be late for the old Heart 8. We're all playing the game. And Patent Pending, tell them what that all means.
Oh, that summed up the whole thing. That means everything that everybody has ever done is all right there. I mean, everything is word for everything that was that we see out there on a daily basis. Everything is in there. Like I said, from the whores and the scores and the losers and all that stuff. Every bit of it is in there. He did an excellent job on that poem. That tells it all right there.
It certainly does, Patent Pending. It really does. Like the chip hustlers and whores that bring a drunk guy up, and and you could see her going for the rack. If they were betting for the dealers, you didn't say too much. You just let it go. But if they weren't, you made sure that they knew, don't come back again unless, you're going to take care of everybody. If you're going to fleece somebody, spread the love.
Oh, and one other thing I want to say. Listen, if anybody wants to email us, we got an email address.
Yes.
That you can write into us and ask us questions, whatever. And the email is VegasDiceKings22@gmail.com. So if please send in, write in some stuff to us, and it'd be very interesting.
Tell them one more time in case someone went to the bathroom.
Oh, absolutely. The email address is VegasDiceKings.com at Gmail. I should say VegasDiceKings22 at gmail.com. Please write in with any of your questions and everything. We would love to answer some of all your stuff that you got, because we've got so much stuff that's involved in all of this. It's going to be a really wild ride for us, that's for sure.
And how about we've got all kinds of guests lined up around the building, so to speak, and with their stories about some of the places they worked at. For instance, Patent Pending worked at the Tropicana for many years, and some of the fellows that he worked with that worked there even before he worked there, which was, when did you go to the Trop?
10 years. I ended up going there in 1978 is when I went to the Trop. That was my home for 20 years. Before that was the Aladdin. I've got some people lined up it's amazing. And listen, for the tip of the day, I would say that if you're going to play dice and you're really trying to learn the game, make one pass line bet, take the odds. If you want to reach out a little bit more, bet the 6 and 8, $6 each, 12 each, whatever it is, and then that's it. Until you start seeing how the game goes, you're not going to lose a whole bunch. You might not win a whole bunch, but you're going to have fun doing it. And listen to the dealer. A lot of the dealers out there are there to help you. They're not to take anything away from you. You'll know who the dealers are, the ones that really want to help you out. So it's like Danny. You get on Danny's game, forget about it. You'll have a blast with him on his game.
Well, I went to Tijuana Tech next to Tijuana U. I was a borderline case till I crossed over.
Yeah.
But it's true. Make a minimal amount of investment. If you buy in for $100 and you're using up $50 of it, you bet 6 each, 6 and 8, or 12 each. Get your money back first. And like my doctor said, patience, patience, patience.
Yeah, I always get your money back. Use the house's money if you can to play. That's what gets everybody in trouble. They start firing when they're losing. They start firing more money trying to get what they had back, and they end up getting in deeper.
If you're an impulsive person, listen, that's the biggest weakness you can have in any game that you play. You've got to learn restraint. Even if you have to put one of them shock collars on your neck, go ahead and let your friend or your girlfriend, if you start to go out there too much, let her hit the button. Okay, pull back.
Yeah, just bet slow if you can. Bet slow. Learn the game a little bit. It's a fun game. You don't have to learn it all in 1 hour. You take your time. Go for lunch. Come back. Play it a little bit more. Then you're gonna start picking up other people playing, what it's going on, and everything like that. So the first time player, yeah, just relax. Take your time with it. You know, that's the tip of the day actually for all that. So listen, thank you very much for watching the Vegas Dice Kings, Danny Craps.
Listen,
right here.
It's always a fun time to be here with Mr. Stiles at his wonderful internet studio. And we want to thank all the audience, and we want you to continue to watch because we got all kinds of stories about all kinds of places, the Tropicana, the dunes, many stories about many people. So please continue to watch.
And don't forget WWDBTV.com. John Stiles.
Absolutely, absolutely, folks. And y'all, you know what? Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Thank you very much for watching and listening.
A
Appreciate
lucky
it.
day. A lucky day.
Very lucky. Thank you.
Thank you.